Hi guys, my name is Kate Conway. I write the Undertow series, and I got approached by 5 girls book reviews to answer a few questions that their reader Michaela had. So I'm going to go down the list and do my best to answer them. So Michaela read Undertow, and apparently she liked it, which, yay! Well, we authors always like it when someone likes our stories. And she had a bunch of questions about the main Blue Book one. So this is the first book in this series, and this is the one she got her hands on through NetGalley, I think. So she asks, how many books are going to follow Undertow? The book was amazing. Well, hey, yay! I'm glad you liked the book. Undertow was like this joke. Not a joke, but I wrote one scene. And I've been a journalist for a really, really long time, and I had just had my son, and I was bored, and for the heck of it, I wrote a scene about a girl and a boy at a bonfire, which is a very common happening on the Cape, and a few people read it, and they demanded I write the rest of the book. So, at first I didn't have many plans. I was like, I'll just do this and my family will read it. I had no intention of selling how many I did, which is around 10,000. So, Undertow quickly got planned into a full series about halfway through the book, because I had readers, and they're like, you need to expand this universe. So, there's Undertow is out right now, Stormfront, the second book in the series, is out right now, Cruel Summer, which has 2 cars on the cover that you can flip upside down. That is a prequel novel, and you're actually meant to read it after Undertow. It's weird, but fans of the Blue Book, the Undertow book, fell in love with Kian and Anna, who are secondary characters. And they wanted to know what happened the infamous summer they met, because in Undertow you get bits and pieces of Kian and Anna really quite... Well, Anna's more angry than he is, but they're towing a line, and there's references to something quite bad that happened the summer before, and so I jumped out of the series briefly and I wrote that book, and now I'm working on True North, which is this really cool red cover, and that's the 3rd book in the main series, and then it's looks like it's laying out to be 4 books total, of big books plus Cruel Summer, so 5 total if you want the whole series. Hopefully, have patience. I do work. I write these just on the side. True North hopefully will be out in January of 2016, and then I'm hoping within a year the last book called Last Light will be out. And then it says, where and how did you get the inspiration to write this book? That's easy. So I grew up on the Cape. I was born here. I still live here. My children have now grown up here, and the Cape has a lot of weird traditions, and people know each other all the time. So a lot of what's in Undertow is actually real to the Cape, except the cute boys that will suck your soul out from under the water. There was a bunch of influences in Undertow. That main scene that I wrote for fun, I did after watching the kids in Sandwich jump from the town neck bridge. So there's this really long boardwalk, and there's a bridge that goes over the river. And I would sit in the parking lot and watch the kids actually leap from the bridge. And some would do like backflips and all this different craziness. And so eventually I jumped. And yes, it's freezing, but it's really fun. And the current can take you out to sea, or the current can bring you back into the salt marsh. So that was the first spark. The second was my parents wanted me to write more of a biography originally, before Undertow or anything, about my grandfather, who was an Iwo Jima survivor, so a World War II survivor. He was 17 when he went to war. So a lot of the ebb and flow of the way Undertow was written is kind of a reflection of war itself. War is never one big haul of fighting. There's these moments of peace and humor, even among the worst of times. So that's why all the characters are kooky crazy, and how they interact, and why I throw them under the bus every once in a while. And then I was a mad fan of Jaws, which was filmed here on the Cape Well, it was actually filmed on Martha's Vineyard. And I was a huge fan of The Goonies. And so I kind of meshed both those things together. Sorry, someone's asking for a book signing. Give me a second. I'll mute my phone. So that's Undertow kind of took up on a life of its own. I really have no basis anymore for the influence. The characters truly drive the story. Once I built them, I'm just along for the ride. I try to dictate what they're gonna do, but they keep messing with my storyline, and what it looks like now is nothing like it was originally written. And I'm glad it's not, because I think it makes it fairly different. It says, what was your favorite subject when you were in school? Does recess count? No. Okay, if you're talking high school, I did love English. But if you're talking college, so I went to Mount Holyoke, which is an all-women's college in Massachusetts, and I went in as a pre-vet major and ended up as a forensic psychology major. That's what my degree is in. And I loved studying terrorism and the mindset of a terrorist and stuff. So you know, versus hostage takers. And I think all that background kind of filtered down to Undertow. So the psych department was my favorite place to haunt when I was in college, because people are just plain nuts, and I like watching people, and I think it's why I write very character-driven story, which, you know, there's this crazy historical background that goes on, but people read the series for the characters, and that's called a character-driven book. I love this question because I've never been asked it. What piece of clothing is your favorite in this book? Okay, so I dress like a college student still, and I steal my 15-year-old daughter's clothes. Shh, don't tell her that. So I don't like shopping in general, but when the characters were being built, I knew they needed, you know, not just a personality, but we are who we are based on the personalities we were born with and the impacts of our lives. So I really like, it's actually Rafe's leather jacket, and he gives it to Isla so she can ride on the back of her motorcycle, on the back of his motorcycle. And it's the first time she actually realizes all right, let me back up. She thinks he likes her at a different level. I like that scene for a lot of reasons. My husband had a Harley. Rafe rides a Harley, rides a Night Rod, which is more like a sports bike for a Harley. And I remember us buying leather jackets because it's the only thing that cuts through the cold. And on the Cape, when it's cold, it's brutal because it's ocean cold. It's like a rawness that cuts right through you. So I just like that scene. And I remember actually sharing my husband's leather jacket, and it was really warm. And I guess that's it. I also like her gowns that they go to the breakers with. So those we looked up on Pinterest, and fans that were working with me on the first book. So I had a team of readers. They were around my age, and they would read through, and they would give me suggestions. And I had a very, very specific mindset of what Isla would wear versus what Anna would wear. And the dresses truly reflect their personalities. So yeah, there's a bunch of different things. There's a piece of clothing I really, really love in True North, but I can't reveal that because it's a new character that gives it to her. What is your favorite book, favorite author? This is like the impossible question. So if you're asking me now as a writer who is influential, or who I will stop writing to read, it's Sarah Maas. She writes Throne of Glass. It's this monster-sized series. I read her books more than once. I love her writing style. And as a general rule, I don't actually, I don't write high fantasy. I write what's called urban fantasy. And if you read my stuff, there's not a lot of fantasy, and there's not a lot of paranormal stuff going on, because I believe the characters are best suited when they're towing the line with their humanity. But she writes high fantasy. And she's the only one I read that writes high fantasy. I also loved, I love the Under the Never Sky series. That was awesome. And I'm a huge Star Trek fan, so that was kind of like the holodeck and some kooky other things. I really liked Eva Darrow's, who's actually Hilary Monahan. I loved her book, The Awesome. I died laughing. That was hilarious. I like Sweet Madness by Trisha Lever and Lindsay Curry. There's a lot of books. I mean, behind me are my shelves, and I buy probably 10 hardcover books a month. My reading list is huge. I'm waiting like crazy to buy a hardcover version of Six of Crows, which is Leah Bardugo, and I loved her Grisha series, which is like Siege and Storm, Rise and Ruin, Shadow and Bone is the first one. So there's so many. When I am writing, I try very, very hard not to read other people's stuff. I'm a graphic artist too, so sometimes when I'm not writing, I'm working on other people's graphics, and then I'll read. So, I don't want stuff influencing my voice, although my characters are really stubborn right now, so not much influences their voice. What is your favorite book that you have written? So, I pinned my daughter down. My daughter is 15, and for the first year it was out, she would not read Undertow, because she hated to read. I hated to read when I was in high school, until I read one book that totally changed me. I became addicted. I read Jurassic Park, and I lost my mind. I thought it was the best thing I ever read. And there's a difference between reading for the sheer joy of the story and reading the great classics because you want to understand them. There's two different things. And so for sheer total enjoyment, it almost blew a grade in chemistry because I had the book wedged in my chemistry book. It was Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park. And I read that before the movie came out. So my daughter finally read Undertow. I remember it took her forever, and I'm like, and my husband still has not read anything I've written. It's not his stuff. So she finally read it, and I will never forget being in bed, and I was working on True North on my laptop, and she came in and she screamed at me that I needed to finish the other book faster because she just got through with it, and that was huge for me because my family never compliments like my writing or anything, so which is fine, but that was big for me, and so I poured a lot of character development into Stormfront, which is the second book. Cruel Summer is a very different book. It's about Anna and Kian and MJ and how their relationships formed and under what circumstances. But I think I love, even though people always say they love Undertow, for me, right now, it's Stormfront. But if you ask me after True North comes out, I'll tell you it's True North. Because that has so much stuff going on. And it's a more detailed world that she gets dragged into. And she finally gets to see the true lives of the Mortis. So I think every book an author writes, they like the next book in the series. So yeah, if I had to pick right now, I love Stormfront. How old were you when your first piece of writing was published? I was 21, and I wrote a piece on an artist in Provincetown, which is on the Cape. This woman knew me, and she said, hey, can you do me a favor? She said, can you go up to Provincetown and interview this artist who takes, it was this weird sort of sheet film, like big, old stuff. It was like Kodak, and he would take the photo, super expose the picture, and then hand tint the colors. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll go up and interview him. She was going to throw me like $100. And I had never written anything journalistically before. I wrote a ton in college, and my professors always told me I should be a writer, and I told them they were all crazy. So then she asked me to do it, And I went ahead and I did it, and I found out that the box of film he had under his desk was the last in existence. The company had stopped making it. So rather than writing it as a profile of an artist, I wrote it as a artist kind of faced with the death of his art form. That launched my career as a journalist. I wrote that when I was 21, and after that I just got a lot of work. People liked my voice and my style, and I thought they were all crazy, but they kept paying me, so I kept writing. But it's fun. The journalism stuff, I got to meet some really cool people and do some really, really strange stories, and pretty soon my editors just like, go with your gut, and I was churning out a lot of work. What is your favorite movie? Easy. Jaws. And it's not because it's a horror flick, it's because it almost broke Steven Spielberg as a director. So the shark was supposed to be the main point of the film, and it never worked right. He called it Bruce, and the weather was terrible, and he wanted to scream, so he didn't do it the way he intended, and the end result was a character-driven story that was phenomenal, and it had these multi-dimensional moments, so I loved how he told the story. I'll be right back. Give me a second. Okay, so I'm back. My office is in my house. I have children, and apparently my son just needed something because my life is never quiet. Anyway, so the last question is, any other interesting facts about you? I'm a mad movie fanatic. That's my daughter and I love going to the movies, and I take my son. I guess Hotel Transylvania 2 is out. Need to go see that. I do drive a school bus during the day. It allows me to get my writing done between my runs. I started it when my son was very little as a way to be able to be home with him and bring him to work because he rides the school bus. And now, I don't know, I just do it for the pure torture. I have a blog that has a lot of stuff on it called Cape Cod Scribe, and it's SCRIBE. And other than that, I'm truly not that exciting. Although I did ride every horrible roller coaster recently in Disney World, and I screamed the whole time. So if you see me on a roller coaster, don't sit in front of me, I'll scream. Anyway, thank you so much, Michaela, for my questions. And I hope that answered them for you. I'll talk to you later. Bye.